What's up YouTube? Fred here. Thanks for joining me. If you guys are new to the channel, please consider subscribing if you like car and motorcycle content. If you like any of my videos, please feel free to give me a like. And on to today's video. Alright, so it's on to today's video. This is going to be a little bit different video for me. I'm kind of just sharing my thoughts. But I'm trying to convince myself that I shouldn't look into potentially, maybe, sort of, kind of, looking at getting a used Gen 5 Dodge Viper. That's the latest generation that ended in 2017. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I like about this car, what I like about that car, and why it's a bad idea, and I really shouldn't even be thinking about it. But it's stuck in my head, so I figure if I kind of vocalize everything, maybe I'll be able to reconcile some things and kind of make a decision. So let's get going. So a couple weeks ago, somebody I follow on YouTube bought a Dodge Viper, and it's a Gen 5. I believe they got kind of a later production model. It might be 2017. I don't know all the specifics, but it's got the hood with 6 vents in it instead of 2, and beautiful car. Really just like fantastic car, and it kind of got me thinking. So back when I was looking at what car to get, I thought, well, I could go used and buy maybe a used R8, a used Viper, something like that, or I could go new and maybe get a Cayman, a Corvette, a Camaro, something like that. And so I went back and forth, and I think, given the fact that I had never owned a real performance car before, and I was real worried that if someone owned it, they would have driven the heck out of it, beaten it up, and then sold it, I'd be left, as a bit of a chump, kind of having to fix all the problems that they caused for it. So obviously you can see I decided to go new. I went with a Corvette. I was able to spec it exactly the way I wanted, and honestly, this is just a fantastic car by any measure, really. It's been 100% reliable. I just crossed 12,019 miles. I've had no problems. I've only had to pay for one oil change. The first 3, including the break-in oil change, were free. So all the maintenance has been zero cost. Other than the cost of gas and insurance, I haven't had to do anything to the car. So that's obviously what I ended up doing. I think now that I've owned this car for a while, I'm at least a little more open-minded to understanding what a used car could bring. They don't make the Viper anymore. The Viper was discontinued, I believe, at the end of the 2017 model year. So what got me thinking about maybe getting a Viper? So thinking back to when I was deciding, if everything had been equal and it was new Viper versus new Corvette, and let's say they were hypothetically the same cost, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would be in a Viper right now. I've always loved the Viper, all the way since the first generation, the RT10, when it came out, and it had basically a Dodge Ram pickup truck V10 in it. I've always loved them. I thought they looked cool. I watched the Viper TV show as a kid growing up, and just never thought that could be something I could afford. When you started to look at used versus new was pretty compelling because I could actually specify exactly what I wanted for options. I could pick what color, all that stuff. And ultimately, that's kind of what won me over. And I was a little bit, I don't know, just excited to buy something brand new for myself, having never owned anything like this. So, obviously the money was the reason I didn't end up with a Viper. I would have gone for it otherwise, but I just didn't have that kind of money. It was literally double the cost of this car. However, things change. The Viper is now out of production it's been about 3 years, and they've definitely depreciated. ACRs have stayed pretty high. They're still about 130, 140 for a really good one with low miles. But a regular Viper has dropped sub 100. They're like 80 to 90. I've seen some in the 70s. And it's gotten the gears turning in my head on, wait a minute, what if I traded this in, put some money down, and got the Viper? That might be really fun. So there are a couple problems. One, let me just start with how great this car is. It's got all the latest technology inside of it. Granted, this is a 2017, so yeah, the C8's out, and yeah, that's the new hotness. But in general, this car is fantastic as far as all the tech. It's got a big touchscreen. It can do Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It's got rev matching on downshifts. It's got magnetic suspension. It's got all sorts of cool features that make it just a real pleasure to drive, as well as a very pleasant place to be. The interior is super comfortable. Everything's leather or, nice soft touch materials. I'm very happy with it. I know some people are like, well, the C8's the first real interior. Whatever. I like this car a lot. It drives better than anything I've ever driven, especially when you get to, 7/10, 8/10 and start pushing it. This car will not let you down. The brakes are amazing. The handling's amazing. It stays flat in the corners. The magnetic suspension sorts out all of the crappy pavement in New England. It's an awesome car. The next problem. So my long-term goal, the thing I've always wanted to own, is a 911 GT3. My whole life, I've always been a fan of Porsche, and since doing the Porsche Experience Center driving in Atlanta last year and driving a 911 GT3, I've had my heart set on buying a 911 GT3 someday. I can't afford it right now, not even close. But it's something that I'm saving up for. I've slowly been putting away money similar to what I did for this car. And what is this guy doing? What are you doing? That guy came in the oncoming lane because he didn't go around the island. Oh, anyway. So my whole life, I've always been a fan of Porsche, and I've always wanted to own a 911. Specifically, for the last, 6 years, I've wanted to own a GT3. I got a chance to drive one on a track last year. I spent 90 minutes with an instructor. One of the most thrilling and exciting experiences in my life, and that has stuck with me. Every single time I see a Porsche, that doesn't even have to be a GT3. I mean, anything with a Porsche badge on it, I'm like rubbernecking. I can't help but look at it. I think they're fantastic cars. So long term, that's what I want to get. I want to get a 911 GT3. Ideally, I'd like to hold on to this car as well as have the 911. We'll see if that happens. It's way outside of my price range right now, but it's something I'm slowly saving for. Now the thought is, maybe I could upgrade this to something that's still a manual, something with a ton of power, something a little more extreme than this, and then get the 911 GT3 sometime later on. So that's kind of the thought in the back of my head, and it's a horrible idea. This car is paid off. It's an excellent car. It does everything I want, and it costs very little to own and operate now that I've paid it off. I don't have monthly payments. I just have the insurance and the gas for it. So it's a bad idea. But why is it stuck in my head? Well, Vipers aren't common. It's got a V10. It sounds amazing. It is one of the last real raw cars. There's no rev matching in it. If I want to drive that car, I'm going to have to get better at heel-toe shifting. I'm going to have to rev match myself. I've been practicing in this, and I'm getting better, but this thing is way more kind of hold your hand, help you along, and fill in the deficiencies. The Viper is not that. The Viper is literally as raw a car as you can buy nowadays, shy of an Ariel Atom or something that's a little more focused and hardcore. But the Viper is a driver's car in every sense, and I like that. I think it looks fantastic. I think it's one of the best looking cars, especially the Gen 5, where they went back to the styling of the original, I believe it was the Gen 2 GTS, where you had the swooping double bubble roof, and you have the tail that kind of kicks up at the back. You have the big swoops in the doors. They pick back up on that. The middle generations of Vipers, you can afford those a lot easier. They're somewhere in the 30 to 50 range right now, but they're angular. They're kind of squared off from all dimensions, and I'm not a big fan of them. I think they're cool, and I think they're neat, and I always look when I see one, but that doesn't get my heart going. When I see the Gen 5 Vipers anywhere out, whether at Cars and Coffee or you luck out and see one on the highway, I'm like excited. Like my heart speeds up, and I'm like, holy cow, look, a Viper, holy cow. My wife is very understanding and accepting, because that's pretty silly that a grown man is going goo-goo over a car like that. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic looking car. I know it would be a challenging car to own. I have no idea what the reliability and the maintenance and all that is, and I kind of don't care. I really think that would be a car that the fun you'd have driving it would be worth whatever the cost of ownership and the maintenance and all of that stuff. So here are a couple other problems with a Viper. Fuel economy. So sports car, you shouldn't care. I get it. However, it's really easy for internet commenters to say that, and it's very different when it's your car and your money that's paying for the operating costs of the vehicle. This gets really good mileage, actually. On the highway, if you put it in fuel saving mode where it goes into a V4 and it shuts off half the cylinders, I've actually gotten sustained 32 miles a gallon cruising in 7th gear. This is a 7-speed manual, idling along at like 1500, 1600 on the highway at about 70. This car is really good on gas. If you're driving it a little more spirited, you have it in sport mode or track mode, the car, I would say I get somewhere around 18 to 20 miles a gallon pretty easily. It's actually not that bad. The car is fairly light, so it's able to, make the most of the gas, I guess. The Viper is not that. The official numbers from the EPA, I forget exactly what they are. I think highways like 18, and I think cities like 8. Real world, from watching some videos and talking to some people that have them, they see anywhere between 10 and 12 most of the time. I think is a 13-gallon tank or a 16-gallon tank. So basically the range on the car is about 150 miles. Whereas the range is like, I think 320 when I fill it, it says usually. So you'd be burning through gas. The tires are way more expensive because they're kind of a weird size. They're 345s, I believe, in the back. I don't know offhand what the fronts are, but they're suitable high performance tires. So your consumables are more expensive. If you get one with carbon ceramics, that's obviously going to change things. On top of that, so this is a 2017 Grand Sport. I think if I traded this in, realistically, I'd hope for 50. I bet I could get about 45. This is in immaculate condition. There's no scratches, there's no dents. This has been washed every 2 drives. I've taken really good care of it. The inside is spotless. Every time someone gets in it, they're like, whoa, is this brand new? It's not, but I take really good care of it. So I think if let's say hypothetically I got it for 50, got this sold for 50. The Vipers, the cheapest I've seen is in the 70s, like 73, 74. I see them go up somewhere in the 80s pretty easily, depending on the options and how it was spec'd out. That means I'm going to take about a $20,000 to $35,000 loan. I'm not going to put a lot of cash down for it, or at least I don't feel like I want to. And so that means another 4 or 5 years of car payments. That's, 20,000's like $415, $420 a month. I've got really good credit, so that's not a problem. But I'm still paying $400 or $500 a month for a car like that. So it's going to be expensive. It's not very practical. It has a lot less storage than this. The back does open up and you can store things, but it's a lot tighter than this is. So that it's a lot less practical. It's tight inside. It's pretty narrow driver and passenger compartment. The center console is fairly wide. The roof is fairly low on it. Basically, it's not designed for long drives. It's not designed for going for a cruise up north in the mountains. It's not meant for spending hours in and doing a road trip, especially when you consider that you're range limited, so you actually have to sort of pay attention to where gas stations are, all of that stuff. So this is paid off. It's cheap to own and operate. It's reliable. It's a known quantity. I have the second largest Corvette dealer in the country. McMulkin over in Nashua is like a half hour away from my house. I have every reason for this car to be one I hold on to as long as possible and have no issue with it. But I still can't shake the fact that I really like the Viper. So here's kind of mentally where I'm at. What I want to do is I want to go sit in one. I've never sat in one, at least not one of the new ones. I've ridden in an older Gen 1 or Gen 2, which was awesome and a lot of fun, but I wasn't even old enough to drive at that point. I think I was like 14. I want to go sit in one. I want to go test drive one and see how it feels. Do I fit? I'm 6'4". I'm a pretty big dude. I want to be sure that I can actually see out the front, that my head's not, right level with the bottom of the roof. I've heard that the leg compartment is skewed to the left and it's fairly narrow, and you need to have pretty dainty feet to really do the pedals. I've got big feet. I think mine are they're size 12 in Nike or 11 and everything else. So they're fairly big feet. So that's going to be kind of another problem. So the plan is, once the virus ends, I'm going to go to a dealership and I'm going to sit in one. And I'm going to see if I can test drive one. And go from there and see. I don't know if I'll fit. I don't know if I'll like it. My hope, my true honest hope, is that I don't like it. That I'm like, oh, it's a cool looking car, but it's not for me. My worry is that's not the case. So we'll see. I will keep everybody posted. And let me know what you think in the comments. If you think I should go look at a Viper, if you think it's a bad idea. I'm pretty sure it's a bad idea, so I already know that. But it's one of those things that this car is purely for fun. I don't need it to be functional. I don't need it to make sense. All I have to know is that in my heart that I enjoy it and that I get a thrill from driving it. So that's, I think, the reason that it's kind of hooked on for me and is like stuck in my head. So thanks for watching. And until next time, Fred out.